this bit should take 3, 4, 5 minutes, so if you want to go grab something to drink because you don't care about my very interesting tangents, now's a good time. So, way back when games were first becoming more and more and more mainstream, right? There was the era where there were the arcades, where that's where you would leave your house to go to a location where there was a game. But suddenly you started to have the emergence of more easily accessible home computers, floppy disks, CD-ROM drives were getting invented, and there was this huge explosion of sudden consumer interest in owning more software for leisure purposes. Because previously computers were built and were thought of as a business technology. We're going to do intense, massive computations, do huge database stuff. Why would I ever want to do that sort of massive computation stuff at home? Games, lo and behold, software, and this sort of thing. So many of the early games that were produced were in a genre called the graphic adventure game genre. If you have never heard of these, like maybe if you're 25 and younger, this would actually really not surprise me. They were a kind of game that was built around puzzles, but not of the Sudoku type. There's sometimes games like a BioShock where you'll be playing it, and then it will stop, and there's a little puzzle that you solve, and then you get back to the first-person shooter action. But in these old graphic adventure games, you would collect an inventory of random items, like a fishhook, a blue hat, a marble. You just have a bunch of stuff on you, and then there'd be a bunch of people or doors that you couldn't get past. And you had to figure out how to use the right items in your inventory on the right person to cause something to happen. So a very simple example might be that there's a locked door. And the way to... And you look in there and it says, well, I can see a key in there. And the answer to the puzzle is you have to get a piece of paper, slide it under the door, and then you push from the inside with the fish hook. The key lands on the piece of paper and you can pull it through and unlock it again or something. Something like this. So these games had a lot of problems to them. Notably something called moon logic, where what I just described was the idea of something that seems kind of intuitive, right? Like pushing to get the key. Oh, and of course, if you try to push through, your character would go, well, I don't want to knock the key out. It'll just tumble on the floor and I won't be able to get it then. So that's what's supposed to guide you to, I need to slip a piece of paper or something under there to knock it down. But sometimes you would have to do things that were so bizarre. You'd have like a blue hat, and you'd have to use the blue hat on the fountain, because if you did that, a bird would come down, try to collect the blue hat, get tired, lie down to sleep on the blue hat, and lay an egg, and that's how you got an egg for a character that was saying, if only I had an egg to eat. I mean, stuff where you're like, how the hell am I supposed to intuit that a bird would come to a blue hat and I put it on the fountain for that? What? So there was this substantial drop-off in the purchasing of these kinds of games. And if you look at the game industry right now, in the past few years, when Fortnite came out, everyone was trying to make a battle royale game. When auto chess was getting popular, tons of companies rushed to get their own auto battler onto the market. Back then, it was the same thing. Tons of companies were trying to churn out graphic adventure games at insane rates. In fact, Sierra, famous for the King's Quest series, had 7 King's Quests. Then they created 2 other branch-off series called Police Quest and Space Quest that were the same as King's Quest, but King's Quest was high fantasy, Space Quest was sci-fi, and Police Quest was realistic modern day. And they were like releasing these games often had like 9-month development times to them. They were just like churning them out. But again, when you have something where I have to do this exact thing to solve the puzzle, if I can't tap into what the designer was thinking at the time, the game stops fucking happening. And there's this really famous article that was released at the time called the suicide of graphic adventure games. Because so many people were talking about, oh, there's all this really great stuff about graphic adventure games that I'll come to in a moment. There's all this great stuff, but people are going for more casual games. Does this sound familiar? Why is no one making any more hardcore games? It's always casual mobile games. Well, back in the graphic adventure day, why are people going for these casual first-person shooter games that are all about action as opposed to something very intellectual about solving puzzles with moon logic? Same thing. And what this person wrote about, in this article called The Suicide of Adventure Games, was that these graphic adventure games were getting so poorly designed and doing such far-fetched ideas that, of course, no one would want to play them. And the example that they used was a puzzle where you need to break into a party, but the person at the gate won't let you in unless you have an ID that proves that you can get in. So you steal a driver's license, and what you have to do is you have to put adhesive on the top of a hole, scare a cat to cause it to run through the hole. The adhesive will tear off some of the cat's hair. You put the hair on as a mustache, and then you use a Sharpie to draw a mustache on the face of the stolen ID you have. You show it to the person. They see the mustache here. They see the mustache there. They let you in. What? And so graphic adventure games slowly tapered away into essentially non-existence. There are still some really classic adventure games that hold up, such as Myst, which you can get on Steam. Just look up a real Myst, M-Y-S-T, where many of the puzzles are a self-contained mechanism. You walk up to this mechanism, you fiddle with it until you understand how it works, and you rearrange some stuff to create a path across a bridge and then move across the bridge. Really like these kinds of games. And as reasonable as I think it is that there's been this smoothing in games over time, you play Skyrim and you say, hey, how do I get here? And an arrow flies out of your fucking head and says, go this way. You know, if you stop moving in some linear first-person or third-person games, tooltip comes up that's like, remember to go here and to take out this item because this person asked you to do it because it's trying to shove you along, trying to shove you along, trying to shove you along. But here's the thing that I think is magical about those old graphic adventure games. That this game here, Myst, what the fuck? This game here, Inscription, is doing a really good job of capturing. Is this idea of mystery and wonder. Because back in the olden days, before Al Gore had invented the internet, is that joke still funny? Does anyone still appreciate that joke? It was funny 10 years ago. It's fine. I don't have new jokes. I just go to the same tired database again and again. Back before the internet was a thing, when you got stuck in one of these graphic adventure games, you just didn't progress. There was no... You didn't know what happened next. This was true in all games. Like in Mega Man 2, if you beat the second stage of Wily's Castle but lost on the third, you never knew what happened after then, unless you just got better. But in those graphic adventure games, you would often be locked in these really surreal, beautiful, interesting, rich spaces. And you'd be trying things, then you'd have an idea, and then suddenly you'd hit something and a secret passage would open, and then what would be on the other side? 3 or 4 screens. So you didn't even know were there. Oh, and those were also very interesting and detailed. Each was often like hand-painted or hand-crafted to have a very particular viewpoint. And that feeling of not really knowing what was going on the other side in any structural sense. What do I mean by a structural sense? In Super Meat Boy, you beat level 1, you go to level 2. You beat level 2, you go to level 3. It shows you how many levels there are to beat. And if you're on level 50 and you can't beat it because you're not good enough, you still have a clear intuition that when you complete this, there's going to be another level, there's going to be more platforming, yada, 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 yada. In these old graphic adventure games, you had no idea what was going to be on the other side of that door, if there was something on the other side of that door. If you were close to the end of the game. I remember in King's Quest VI, that feeling of, oh my gosh, there's not just one island, there's 4 islands. This wonder, this sort of like rule breaking that goes on. And here's as best as I can describe a mechanics explanation of where this feeling comes from. In a lot of games, I'm just going to categorize things in the game as your goals, your obstacles, tools, right? In Mario, your goal is to go right. Like 2D Mario. Start here, you go to this side until you hit the end of the world. What are your obstacles? You need to jump over pits. You need to not get killed with various monsters. And what are your tools? Well, for Mario, it's jumping. He solves all his problems in life by hitting his head on things via jumping or landing with his feet on things via jumping. Occasionally, he can shoot fire, but he's a jumper, okay? It is satisfying to do those platforming puzzles and to time things out. That is really satisfying. But when do those moments of wonder suddenly get you all excited? A lot of times, it's when your obstacles or your goals, the constraints that are placed on you, change in a big way. Like when you stand on the tube and hit down, I suddenly am just going down into the earth. Oh my gosh, wow! The constraints on the game, when you see in Super Mario 3, you can go this way or you can go that way. And then you do something that suddenly breaks the path over to this way. It's when those constraints break, those constraints change, that it creates this feeling of wonder and mystery where it feels like there's going to be surprises hidden around the corner. Now, this is different from getting a tools change, which might be something like you're playing and you have these, put on the hat, lets you shoot fireballs. Oh, then you get a different hat that lets you shoot frost balls that freeze enemies instead of killing them. Okay. Sure. Cool. That's fun. I'm not saying it isn't fun. I'm just saying that this doesn't create this feeling of wonder and mystery and, oh my gosh, it's crazy, this is so cool. It's when you start breaking the obstacles, start breaking the constraints of the world. And I think most broadly of all, when the goal starts getting messed with. You've got to be really careful about confusing the player as to what their goal is. If in Mario you went from left to right and left to right and left to right, having a really clear goal can ground everything the player's doing and let fun happen at all. In Dota, push the towers, get last hits, shove in the lanes to destroy the Ancient. You do that every single game. I've just passed 3,000 hours played of Dota, and the fact that that goal is so clear and unchanging means as I'm playing, I'm getting better and better, and I'm still guided. You don't want to be in a situation where your player has no clue. What am I supposed to want? What is it that I want, etc., 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 etc. So in this game, I'm finally going to keep playing the game.
Your turret has been destroyed. An enemy has been slain. Your team has destroyed a turret.
Emphasize how the machine works. We've created a lot of money and debt, a lot of buying power. Everybody received all that, but you don't create more wealth when you create more money. And we're at the part of the cycle where all those checks went out and all that money came in. And yet before, or just at the beginning of the phase, that all that money is being spent and increasing the inflation. And with it, throughout history, it causes goods, services, and financial asset prices to rise. And so we're in the part of the cycle. We're in the third year. This next year will be the third year in the cycle. And naturally, there will be a tightening of monetary policy. And the problem with that tightening of monetary policy is that there's a great deal of interest rate sensitivity. And because it's gotten so far and so extreme, just the pulling back of that is a very delicate thing. We're in a situation that the raising of interest rates and the tightening of monetary policy begins the process. In the third year of a cycle, as we're in, that normally is not enough to send the cycle down. It could send financial asset prices lower. But I would expect that if you understand the short-term cycle, this typically 7-year type of cycle in terms of expansions and recessions, it's the beginning of the testing of the brakes.
So not necessarily a recession, but could see some increased volatility. You've said you don't want to be in cash right now, and you don't want to be in bonds. But if the Fed does embark on this tightening and slows the economy and the markets, that feels like it would be a pretty turbulent time for equities.
The important thing to realize, I think, is that the Federal Reserve and all central banks will have to keep a negative interest rate, a negative real interest rate. Right now, bond yields have a negative real interest rate of nearly 1.5%, 2%, depending on where, and the cash rate is minus 4%. So that all investors will be in a position where the value of their money in cash or in bonds will not keep up with inflation. I think investors need to think about returns differently. I think they look at the amount of the returns in nominal dollars, how many dollars do I have, and they don't look at the amount that they have in relation to real dollars. In other words, adjusted for inflation. And while there can be somewhat of a tightening, it can't be enough of a tightening to raise those returns on cash and bonds to be good enough to compensate for inflation. Because if it is, if you had that would require a very large rise in interest rates that would first set the economy down. So when we look at the circumstances today, just imagine with the political polarity that we have as we're coming into the 2022 elections and then the 2024 elections, if the Federal Reserve tightened the monetary policy enough to cause a downturn, if we're at each other's throats when these are everybody's received so much money and this is about as good as you're going to get, just imagine the consequences that would have. So the Federal Reserve, I don't believe, even though they're behind the curve by a lot, I don't believe they're going to be able to catch up and make cash and bonds an attractive investment.
However, scientists have already put forward the idea of a quantum battery with an almost infinite life.
Folks who get in on this breakthrough now, before it's rolled out on a mass scale, will have the chance to be a part of the single largest legal creation of wealth of the last 25 years.
So the workings of this nano device are based on completely different principles than usual.
It's easy to see why Wall Street is desperately waiting in the wings to load up on shares.
Aerotime International. It is a cutting-edge high-tech firm out of the Midwest awaiting imminent patent.
Let's say this company's battery captures just 1/2% of the global electric car market in the coming years.
Imminent patent approval on the next generation of radar detectors that have both huge military and civilian applications. Now,
That will be enough to boost its revenue to more than $2 billion when production and sales are in full swing. That's an incredible 27,746% increase from where it stands today.
the stock trades over the counter at 10 cents a share. And by the way, John, our analysts indicate it could go a heck of a lot higher than that.
A revenue surge that big could rocket shares into the stratosphere.
Your profit on a $6,000 investment would be upwards of $60,000. Exactly, you could pay off your mortgage.
We could easily see a price share surge of 12,000% or more. Keep in mind, that's just my extremely conservative estimate.
And in the case of Aerotime, based on every technical factor out there, John, we are looking at a grand slam home run.
As I believe the market share could end up being much, much bigger. But still, let's say this company's battery captures a still very conservative 3% of the overall electric car market.
4,000, that'd be 40,000 shares, John. Let me lock in that trade right now and get back to you with my secretary with an exact confirmation. Sound good, John?
That would be enough to boost its revenue by an earth-shattering 81,000%. At that rate, we could see a share price gain of 36,000% as the quantum glass battery achieves mass market adoption.
Quick, take my money. I mean, that's like claiming that just owning a car doesn't cost you money, it earns you money.
You say, what would be the probable gross profit from a single robotaxi? We think probably something on the order of $30,000 per year. The fundamental message that consumers should be taking today is that it's financially insane to buy anything other than a Tesla.
Just like that, I made $2 grand. The other guys look at me like I just discovered fire.
And you'll be shocked to find out that the quantum glass battery is bullshit. But before we get into that, all claims of making revolutionary new batteries are bullshit. Now, you might think there's no way I can make such a sweeping statement. Well, a little history. It's now 4 years since John Goodenough, the guy who got the Nobel Prize for the lithium-ion battery, claimed to have invented a new battery that was going to blow everything else away.
It was in the late 1970s when John Goodenough developed the first lithium-ion batteries right here at the University of Oxford.
Have announced they've invented a new battery that sounds too good to be true, and the new battery they've come up with is unlike anything anyone's ever seen before. Compared to current batteries, it can hold 3 to 10 times the charge, can be recharged in minutes instead of hours, and has a lifespan of over 1,000 cycles, and doesn't go boom in your back pocket.
Never marveled at this new technology, this new perfect battery that was going to change everything. Well, almost everyone. Someone made a busting video on it. And sure, you got all the usual criticisms he does when he busts some big shot that, you're just jealous of how much this inventor has achieved or how rich this guy is. Or you must just clearly be some weird, insecure incel loser. Maybe you should just read the white paper some more. All arguments curiously directed at his character rather than the content of his videos. It was almost like they didn't have a point to make, so rather than address the message, they decided to attack the messenger. And it may surprise no one that the idea basically died after these big claims. With the wiki now reading, Goodenough's high reputation was enough to deter the strongest criticism. However, Daniel Steingart of Princeton commented, if anyone but Goodenough published this, it would be, well, it's hard to find a polite word. But how could I call it out like that? Well, it turns out for exactly the same reason as other revolutionary new batteries. So grab your popcorn and let's get back to the quantum glass battery. Quantum energy sources can also be used in electric vehicles, electric scooters, laptops, and many other devices that use batteries.
Dear viewer, this is a .22 caliber Remington bullet flying through the air at 1,800 feet per second.
And this is a starship going above the speed of light. And this is nanotech. Oh, sorry, none of those things exist. That's why I'm showing you a computer animation of those things. But the great thing about fantasy, of course, is you can make up any rules for it that you want.
And this is a prototype of a mind-blowing new type of battery.
Camelot, Camelot, Camelot. It's only a model.
Insiders are calling a paradigm shift in energy technology. A forever battery that will usher in the next great energy revolution.
The idea of creating a nanometer-sized quantum battery
It's nanotech, you like it?
belongs to scientists at both the University of Alberta and the University of Toronto.
Even going so far as to call it the Jesus battery, because the properties it exhibits are so miraculous. Forbes calls it simply the battery that could change the world.
According to researchers, this little thing is able to hold a smartphone's charge almost forever. Once you charge a quantum battery, you'll never need to connect it to a power network again.
Not only does this battery take all 3 bullets to the gut like a champ, it continues to generate power flawlessly without skipping a beat. Zero fires, zero explosions, zero danger. It gets better. Here's the same bullet-ridden battery 24 hours later, on the same charge.
No, seriously, are you not convinced by this? Look, there is a dial saying it's still on the same charge 24 hours later. Who is not convinced by this? Well, for those of you who are, I've got good news. I've just invented this amazing new machine that makes your bank account numbers go up, with our top analysts forecasting it could generate as much as $1 million per second. I know it's hard to believe, but let me show you this machine actually working. Look, I start the machine and the bank account numbers go up.
30 seconds until minions spawn. An enemy has been slain. An ally has been slain. Enemy double kill.
A revenue surge that big could rocket shares into the stratosphere. We could easily see a price share surge of 12,000% or more. Keep in mind, that's just my extremely conservative estimate, as I believe the market share could end up being much, much bigger. That would be enough to boost its revenue by an earth-shattering 81,000%. At that rate, we could see a share price gain of 36,000% as the quantum glass battery achieves mass market adoption.
That's where the rank amateurs invest their money. You'd invested your money in my bank account numbers go up machine, you would have made $45 million already.
My point is, right now this company is still small and unknown, giving you the rare chance to be among the first to get in front of this massive revolution. Opportunities like this simply don't land in your lap every day. It may be decades before we get another chance like this to get in at the very front of a major multi-trillion-dollar transformative shift.
Oh, he's right. If merely my subscribers had bought into this machine, it would have already generated $75 million for each of them. That's an amazing $75 trillion of wealth generation.
This could be the moment you remember for the rest of your life, the moment that changed everything. Years from now, you'll be able to look back and tell friends and family you saw this trend coming, understand the impact it would have, and how you were able to make a fortune off it.
Oh yeah, you could have made $100 million in 100 seconds. I mean, what if there's only a 1% chance that it's true and you missed out on it?
One thing I can promise you, even in this market, is that I never ask my clients to judge me on my winners. I ask them to judge me on my losers because I have so few.
Even if you invest a few bucks or just want to learn about what's going on, it's worth it. I believe it's only a matter of time before the tiny company at the epicenter of the quantum glass battery technology revolution becomes the next household name.
Oh, it's an amazing idea. If only I had the security of some sort of guarantee that this is good financial advice.
In fact, I'm so confident in the quality of my research that I'm willing to give you the strongest guarantee I could think of. If I don't give you the opportunity to see 1,000% gains as the quantum glass battery explodes into the mainstream over the next year in a model portfolio, I don't want you to have to pay for my work at all.
Your work constituting a video on YouTube that you can watch for free. That's the refund you're offering as a guarantee?
That's right. Have a look at everything mentioned here, 100% risk-free for the next 365 days. If you don't see 1,000% gains in my model portfolio, if you don't think it's the single most valuable financial resource you've ever had access to, I'll refund every penny of your membership.
Wow, refund the membership that I needed to watch a video on YouTube for free. And that was the strongest guarantee you could think of.
That's how confident I am in my work and in the quantum glass battery revolution set to be unleashed across the world on a mass scale. This tiny company is off the radar of just about everyone, including the big boys on Wall Street. Just check out how many Wall Street firms own this stock. 0. Because Wall Street doesn't follow this tiny company yet. The mainstream media typically doesn't either.
What, really? The mainstream media don't follow it either? Why, that's peculiar. Don't I remember earlier you tried to leech credibility by saying it was covered by every mainstream media outlet on the planet?
Insiders are calling a paradigm shift in energy technology, a forever battery that will usher in the next great energy revolution.
Pretty much last forever article. Independent. 2015.
Even going so far as to call it the Jesus battery.
The Jesus battery. Wired. 2017. About 5 years ago.
Because the properties it exhibits are so miraculous. Forbes calls it simply the battery that could change the world.
Yes, they did that in 2018. And it's really not been seen again since. Look, problem number 1 is if you want to put twice as much energy into a battery, then in the event of a failure of a freshly charged cell, you're going to release twice as much energy. You short circuit a battery, all of the energy from the battery is dumped into the battery. It makes no difference at all if it's a solid state battery or not. You connect those two plates together, you're going to have a bad time. And when you do an incredibly simple calculation, you get a pretty good estimate of what that final temperature will be. The energy density of a lithium-ion battery is about 250 watt-hours per kilo, which is about 900 kilojoules. For a kilo of lithium-ion battery, it takes about 1.5 kilojoules to raise the temperature of that battery by 1 degree Celsius. So if you discharge this battery into itself, you short-circuit it, you raise its temperature by about 600 degrees Celsius, that sort of thing. Which is just short of red heat, which is why these things tend to boil the solvents, and then they start to burn, releasing even more energy. Well, some people are putting organic polymers there instead of solvents, which really won't make any difference at all, because at these sorts of temperatures, almost all organic polymers break down and burn just like solvents. Well, what about using a ceramic of some sort? Well, ceramics are not exactly known for their flexible nature, and on top of that, they tend to be very dense. But fine, let's just say you can get that to work, and you manage to cram twice as much energy into the battery. How? When you get a short circuit, a freshly charged cell's temperature will spike up to about 1,000 degrees Celsius, at which point your failing battery will melt any glass electrodes, any lithium, and most likely through the casing and the car, or your phone, or whatever else you happen to be holding at the time. It's a miracle. The battery energy density is as high and as safe as it currently is. And yeah, of course, it does go without saying that Elon Musk was promising a 400 kilowatt-hour per kilo battery with a high cycle life producing volume probably in 3 to 4 years. And yeah, that was in 2020. And I'll bet dollars to donuts that never happened. With his fan club speculating that this will mean that he's about to make the supersonic vertical take-off and landing electric jet that he was saying was the perfect form of transport. But he's not the only one. There is an endless list of people claiming that they're going to have amazing new batteries on the market in a few years.
So Dyson will be able to help SAC-T3 with bringing the technology from lab to market. Dyson aims to complete the development of their first electric vehicle and bring it to market equipped with solid-state battery tech by 2020, but it won't likely happen until 2023.
Yeah, so scrolling through my comments from 4 years ago, I found this. But Toyota is currently making solid-state batteries, and this aged poorly. Well, no, not really. Toyota was saying that their new solid-state battery could make it into cars by 2020. And they released a video on the 7th of September 2021 claiming that they had their first all-solid-state battery electric car, all 11 seconds of it. And if you come to Toyota's webpage on batteries, they tell you how many patents they have on this. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be possible, they've just got lots of patents on it. And if you come down, they say how many people they've got working on it, which is all true, of course. They've had hundreds of people working on it for about a decade now, which just sort of speaks to the technical challenges of the problem. You know, that's the sort of material investment you're looking at in trying to solve a problem like that. And even at that, we're on track for limited production by 2025. Yeah, that's limited production doesn't necessarily mean that it'll be safe as a product or that it'll be cost effective as a product. Those are still bridges you've got to cross. And for those who are really convinced by this 10-second clip of a seemingly solid-state electric car means that it's now safe and cost effective, well, here's about a 10-second clip video of a jetpack working. Does this now mean that jetpacks will be cost effective and safe to produce in 5 to 10 years? Put simply, batteries at the moment are basically bombs. Doubling the energy density is no trivial task. When you get a thermal runaway on something and the temperature is high enough to melt steel beams, it's a much more intrinsically difficult problem. 10 times that energy density, and you're in Joker territory.
Compared to current batteries, it can hold 3 to 10 times the charge, can be recharged in minutes instead of hours, and has a lifespan of over 1,000 cycles, and doesn't go boom in your back pocket.
Now, you might sound too harsh on batteries here, in that don't cars have just as much energy in their gas tank? Well, yes they do. But the thing about the gas is it needs to be mixed with air to burn, which is its kind of built-in safety feature. Also means you don't have to carry the air around with you all the time. You cannot get a thermal runaway on a gas tank. Rupture the gas tank and mix it with the air, and sure, you've got a problem. But on its own, gas in a tank is actually pretty safe. The simple reality is you consider merely the bulk of the charged and discharged states of a battery, and we're pretty close to maximum energy density now. And another simple reality is energy density is not like Moore's law. There is a peak to energy density, which is why we use pretty much exactly the same gas to power our cars now as we did 100 years ago. All the quantum nano gas in the world won't change the simple thermodynamics. So is merely doubling the energy density of batteries possible? Well, it's clearly not easy, because already billions of dollars have been thrown at this with no real solution. And even if you can do that, that's merely scratching the surface in terms of what you actually need. It needs to be safe, not just in the lab, but in real-world conditions. Heat cycling, cold, moisture, and so forth. It needs to be low density, light and small for power. And, of course, it needs to be cost-effective. Basically means, I can't make it from exotic materials like gold or silver.
Elite Eye has developed a technology that could potentially help a battery hold unlimited charges. While experimenting in the lab, she made a remarkable discovery that will have a huge impact on future energy consumption. By coating the gold nanowires in a thin gel.
Yes, that was UC Irvine suggesting that gold, one of the densest, therefore most unsuitable for batteries, and expensive things that you could possibly make a battery out of. We have videos like this from Subject to Zero Science, the breakthrough solid-state battery, 900 watt-hours per litre, Samsung 2020. And if you wonder why you've not actually seen that battery yet, well, your first clue should be when they're talking about watt-hours per litre. That's the sort of thing that you'll talk about if you're making your batteries out of something really dense, like, say, for instance, silver, or something really expensive, like, say, for instance, silver.
By removing this layer and having only silver atoms playing the part of the matrix.
Yes, of course. Replacing the matrix with silver.
You can effectively introduce more cathode into the mix, increasing the overall energy density of the battery, or 900 plus watt-hours per liter.
So is it impossible to merely double the energy density of batteries in a cost-effective way, in a way that would be market viable? I mean, you take a look at the number of criteria that this thing has to hit, and it's pretty insane. My guess would be this isn't going to happen, for the simple reason that the more energy that you pack into the actual structure of the material, the more likely it becomes that merely looking at this thing sideways will cause a thermal runaway. But what's that? This video aged poorly within one day because a Michigan startup with its Gemini battery power pack powers a Tesla for almost 800 miles. That's almost twice the range of an extended range Tesla. Wait, they just put 2 regular batteries in Tesla, did they? Well, their website's kind of so big, it's really difficult to tell what the hell they did. But if you take a look at some of the news articles linked on their website, like this one from Reuters, the second of these battery technologies called Gemini, sounds like there's a 2 or something there, uses one proprietary energy management system in chemistry. In a dual battery range extender architecture. Sounds like they just put 2 batteries in there. This approach yields 450 watt-hours per litre at a system level. Not entirely sure what a system level means here. And like I was saying, watt-hour per litre is the usual metric that you go for if you're using something that's very dense in your battery. Anyway, bottom line is it doesn't really matter. There is a chasm between actually having some vehicle that can do something in a one-off and actually being able to mass produce that in a safe form at a cost-effective price point. And also, let me say that their video that is the proof of this 700-mile trip is basically a montage of a road trip. Really, you think you've got this battery that is going to completely revolutionise the world, and the best that you can put together is a road trip montage. I was putting stuff like this together 14 years ago. I mean, on top of that, it's now 2022. If it was this epoch-making, why not just live stream the whole thing? And if you take a look at their website, and yeah, this is their entire website for this battery that is going to completely revolutionise everything. And I'll try to find all these patents with this, of course, amazing graphic. And the only simple patent that I could find was this one, which, so this is relatively recent, it's 2017, this is the closest I could find. So this is the actual guy behind it, or the founder of the company. For some reason, the current assignee is Apple Incorporated, and it's 2017, and it's more about stopping thermal runaways in batteries than it is about some amazing new battery technology. So sure, people have spent billions of dollars on this and haven't yet succeeded. They confidently call bullshit on a Nobel Prize winner who made similar claims. Sorry, it's just respectful in practicality, combined with a number of people crying Eureka, basically means I will believe it when I see it. And claims of glass battery this, solid state battery this, or quantum battery the other really just don't cut it. Which reminds me, we're meant to be blasting that quantum battery.
They suggest that it would be possible to build an almost perfect battery by connecting multiple quantum energy sources to each other. In this case, their individual properties combining together. Thus, if one quantum battery will be charged in an hour, then 2 could take 30 minutes, and several thousand batteries less than a second.
Oh boy, did we enter the matrix today. Sadly, in the real world, that's not how batteries or any energy storage application work. Batteries basically have different electronic states per atom, and the difference between those 2 states is the energy that the battery can store. This is why your typical electrochemical cell runs on a couple of volts. That's the difference in the electronic states between the 2 atoms. But this is just a regular battery. There is nothing special about it. That's why you can never store incredible amounts of energy in a battery or any material.
This little thing is able to hold a smartphone's charge almost forever. Once you charge a quantum battery, you'll never need to connect it to a power network again.
Yeah, just be clear, you can't get energy out of a battery that you didn't put in the first place.
Owners of mobile devices will be able to use them as much as they like, and not be afraid that at the most inopportune moment, the battery will run out.
So in this magical world where you can store infinite amounts of power safely in a battery, that does mean that you need to put that almost infinite amount of power in there first. But that's in many ways not your main problem. The main problem is that currently battery energy density is sufficiently high that they're almost bombed. You add almost limitless extra power storage into this thing, and they basically become pocket Thankfully, they're just talking crap, and this doesn't exist. Oh, well, I mean, technically you can say these are quantum states, but by that definition, your body runs on quantum energy. You know, the difference in energy states of electrons bound to one configuration nuclei versus another. We would just call this chemistry. But sure, if it helps you sell your pseudoscience, call it quantum nanotech. But it's still just a hamburger. It doesn't help that after this, they go on to state that scientists are trying to learn from photosynthesis.
This efficiency of plants is inexplicable from the point of view of classical physics, but recent experiments show that photosynthesis uses the well-known quantum effect of particle superposition. Many scientists are trying to apply the principle of photosynthesis to build more effective solar cells.
Actually, no, since its inception, solar cells have had higher efficiency than photosynthesis. Yeah, Riddle is just another one of those channels that substitutes good production values, basically high-quality stock video footage, for real scientific accuracy.
If you like this video, give it a quick thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, click on the bell so you don't miss any new releases. There's still a lot more to learn about all these stunning achievements of science and technology.
And they go on to ram the point home like this.
Meanwhile, Chinese inventors have said they are close to creating a perpetuum mobile, or a kind of perpetual motion machine. They promise to soon test their EM drive in space, a quantum engine that doesn't need an external energy source.
Yeah, the EM drive, the one that I busted in 2016. Another video which honestly stood the test of time pretty well.
If successful in the future, this EM drive will be able to reach the edge of the solar system in just a few months.
Amazing. Every word of what you just said was wrong.
This device consists of a magnetron generating microwaves and a resonator, which accumulates the energy of their vibrations. This design allows one to convert radiation into traction.
And it works so well that I'm going to show you it working. Oh no, I can't, because with their latest measurements, they found out it generated no thrust. You know, once they'd excluded the errors that were giving them a false thrust reading. Oh yeah, if only someone could have figured that 5 years earlier. So instead, I'll just draw some arrows on a picture and tell you this is how it works, just like this is how starships go faster than the speed of light.
So, apparently, the day is fast approaching when we'll finally get an eternal source of energy. Can you imagine for a moment what will happen next? Let's try and do it together. Shipping services will immediately become cheaper, and in a month, a pleasantly slimmed down electricity bill will come.
You like it?
You'll no longer need to buy expensive energy-saving lamps. You'll not have to turn off the lights when you leave the room. Actually, our dreams of an endless and free source of energy. In fact, such savings are only a small part of the limitless possibilities of an eternal source of energy. Possibly the most important thing for humanity is that wars will lose their meaning, because most of them are fought over energy resources.
Yeah, and it just goes on and on like this, eventually getting to
agriculture will become profitable almost anywhere on the planet. Even Antarctica could be built up with greenhouses, because maintaining the right temperature inside them will be cheap.
And yeah, because it's a pet bugbear of mine, if you're going to live your entire life on a spinning ball, and you're going to put that spinning ball in the video, at least make sure it's spinning in the right direction. And then, with a pure crescendo of stupidity, built entirely because you didn't understand the difference between batteries storing energy and generating energy, I give you this.
Finally, with unlimited resources, scientists will be able to create spacecraft for interstellar flights. Then we'll finally get the opportunity to colonize other planets, unloading the overpopulated Earth. In a word, an endless source of energy will bring an era of abundance, an unprecedented flowering of scientific and technological progress.
Dude, you don't know the difference between a battery and a generator. I would hold off on the poetic language about an unprecedented flowering of scientific understanding if I were you. But hey, that's kind of why I'm here, to throw a bucket of damn you had it coming on the popular disinformation merchants, and a bucket of reality on the recurrent headline of the miracle new battery that's going to change everything, and it's just been discovered. Because this channel doesn't deal with the sweet, beguiling lies of beautiful fantasy.
Your profit on a $6,000 investment will be upwards of $60,000.
It debunks that crap with the simple sanity of cold, hard reality. And if you want to support that, well, why not drop a thumbs up on the video, or subscribe, or if you really want to support the channel, you can do it directly through the Thanks for watching.
Your turret has been destroyed. Your turret. Has been destroyed.
This episode and others like it are made possible by the generous support of my patrons on Patreon. In some other news, if you haven't heard already, I recently started a podcast with Hakeem and Yugopnik. It's called The D Program, and it's a show dedicated to helping listeners shake off the capitalist programming we've all been subjected to over the years. We tackle all sorts of topics, from theory to current events to culture, and just generally have a good time. If that sounds like something you enjoy, be sure. So you're like, it's okay. Look, this episode's for you. Gen Z, Navy, Wait, storylines, and those like crap. But for now, here's our show. You're the generation with the biggest cut of $1.7 trillion student loan debt. Go you. Oh wait, actually that's Gen X. Never mind, you're not special. In this episode, we're going to talk about that. Not the nothing special thing, student loan debt, but also debt in general. Debt occupies a pretty central role in the history of humanity. Today, you mostly hear about national debt, how it's always getting bigger, or student loan debt, how it's always getting bigger, or mortgage debt, how it's always getting bigger. Until it doesn't so well have time for a couple years, and then we all forget, and it starts always getting bigger again. Every time we hear about debt, whether it be our own or someone else's, it's usually not because things are going well. We generally don't like debt, but it seems like we can't get enough of it. Why is that? When it comes to student loan debt, you'll usually get a pretty simple answer. College just keeps getting more expensive. Every year, costs go up and outpace inflation, most dramatically at private schools. Higher costs and student body has been growing for decades means that more people have to borrow more to afford higher education, so debt grows. It's not particularly complicated or unique observation to point this out. And while all of that is true, looking at student loan debt within the narrow scope of costs and supply and demand detracts from the fact that student loan debt at the end of the day is just that, debt. And debt has a much longer history than colleges decided to start tuition at some point in the last 80 years. So let's actually look at debt. Studying debt more generally and defining the role it has in our economy helps us understand why student loan debt is probably not going to go away anytime soon. And although we argue about precedents and legal authority of student loan forgiveness, and we absolutely should, anything to get loan cancellation done is good, we should also explore the fact that our inability to end student loan debt thus far doesn't just come from how difficult it is to find to do the right thing, but from the entire economic and political structure that maintains debt in place. And the key factor keeping debt so present in our everyday lives is its interconnection with violence and control. That is the thesis of two items, anthropology rigor and sociologist / philosopher Mauricio Alvarado in their two books, Debt, the First 5 Years and Governing by Debt. Let's start with rigor. There are a lot of insights in rigor's book, but the one that's most relevant to this video is the idea of the military point slavery complex. Beyond being absolute banger and sophomore seminar, the MCSC, as I call it this one time only, refers to the way that money and debt more generally became associated with violence, war, and force. The story goes, rigor, that the beginning of economic relationships wasn't bartering. I give you yams, you give me a cow. Instead, the beginning of economics was debt. I give you my yams because I know you want nothing to go anywhere. We have informal IOU system going so that when you get something that's roughly worth those sweet yams I give you, you'll just give it to me. Eventually, we'll just sell our debts. These kinds of relationships demand a lot of trust really work, but they were able to sustain really quite impressive economies. And rigor, alongside other psychologists, is pretty confident that this is how society actually changed for centuries, not through resource transactions barter and not through coinage. So why do coins ever appear and why is money the way we know it now is paper company bound and numbers on computer screen? Everything needs to have. Rigor's answer is that there are sometimes debt that requires trust and IOUs alone, and one of the big ones is war debt. When it's time to do war, you need to pay soldiers, and soldiers have a far away from home and have every single security you've ever seen in your life don't love IOUs. It's easier to give those soldiers metal, and then find a way to make those soldiers mean something by giving them the guarantee of value. In a way, those coins are the debt you owe them. But that's not all. You also have to worry about the other soldiers. When you get soldiers, you can shine your RGB lists to the place well, keep it on all debt. Now your years are probably done, and when you're right countryside and some rich people who protection, gain slavery, he's going to be able to pay his debts, and you're going to be the world's biggest loser. So you better start getting coins, and you better start growing your own massive debt, and then quality using that debt. Or you better the money resources you need to make coins you keep track of in the first place, and taxing more like the rest of the people needs to sustain itself. And the best part is that those people will absolutely take that deal. It's their money or their lives. You're being a nice guy by giving them a choice. For rigor then, the origin of money wasn't satisfied partisan efficiencies of our economy that probably never really existed. Money, markets, and the state all emerged in tandem when debt needed to grow and became a matter of force. Whether any of this happened or not still predicts. Rigor has a trove of historical records takes place in different parts of the world that relates to almost to a T every time. And it's because the world a lot of still academics, but it's ultimately still theory and techniques that don't have a lot of straight line between them. But that's fine. The point of the book is to give a definitive historical account of debt, but the deal factor of nature of debt, and the possibility how it works. The two big conclusions are that one, debt is one way to get two formally equal people and create legitimate domination. Because you owe me, you may specifically quantify and backed by the state for trust you I have violence on my side and power over you. Or because I borrowed and you didn't, I have means to exert violence and you don't. The other ways in which we relate to one another fades into the background when money becomes the way to think of and actually use debt. Number two, for debt to grow, violence needs to grow too. War is a good way to become the norm because you always find people justify spending and borrowing more war, using war to get more resources, putting those more war, and so on. It's not as simple as the bad guy and the other is the good guy. It's that in order for debt to grow, wars, magnitudes, you need violence. And whoever is on the side capable of doing violence will use that debt for their benefit. This is a really complicated argument, and part one summarizes a single chapter of 15 minutes video in the week. So if you're learning well, this is out there are various book summaries and critiques in the description. For now, let's move on. Because we started out with student loans and just spent 5 minutes on medieval wars and slavery. The reason to go so in depth on debt though is because the connection between violence and debt, or in other words, violence and economy, has persisted. On the international scale, it's hard to distinguish between their competitors old time in Europe and Asia, the US for national debt. A massive country which is very far involved in past wars, and the year ritual thing with nearly $1 trillion will back the flames of the world's largest military budget. Similarly, the creation of debt traps across the world, meaning Africa and Latin America, so that our domestic markets and industries produce incredible wealth for the US really resembles colonial and expansionary methods that make money and debt the currency of violence. Rigorous exhausting 500 pages long. Debt has de facto become the logic of government. Just using debt to fund wars isn't enough though, because sometimes when expanding states and rapidly industrialized economy, very much, some people have the funny idea that money can become
We start off with another sharp sell-off to end the week. The Nasdaq dropping nearly 3% to close at the lows of the day. Index down more than 50% on the record high. Look at the moves across markets just this week. The S&P down more than 5.5%. Treasury is dropping to multi-year highs. In commodities, the economic recovery trade getting crushed. The S&P 500 ETF dropping more than 10%. So what exactly is the market trying to tell us?
All right, today is Sunday, January 23rd. This is a recap of the stock market activities last week and outlook for the week to come, folks. I got a good one for you tonight, and let's dive right into it. In focus tonight. And so it begins. The beginning phase of the upcoming bear market. As you might be aware by now, the Federal Reserve's policy is changing from becoming quote-unquote easing to quote-unquote tightening, meaning the flow of drugs from the Federal Reserve, the flow of coke from the Fed to the market is about to end. You and I know. We've been talking about this for a long time. The only thing supporting the stock market to hold these insane valuations right now is the flow of coke from the Fed to the market. You take that away, and the rug will be pulled in the most violent fashion you've ever seen. We're already seeing this happening. The sell-off is absolutely aggressive and stunning, and we're just getting started, baby. But somehow the retail crowd did not get the memo yet. The retail crowd has been zombified, stripped away from any rationale or critical thinking at all. They put the blindfolds on, and they continue to buy the dip over and over and over again. Because your typical retail investor has become a zombified degenerate gambler who's programmed all the time to buy the dip over and over and over again. They worked in the past when the Fed was easing. It's not working anymore. Yet the retail crowd continues to buy the dip over and over and over again, expecting the Fed somehow is bluffing, even though we have the most intense and destructive inflation that we've ever seen since the 1970s. In late September, the retail crowd bought almost $2 billion worth of dip in the stock market. They continue to buy dip over and over and over again in November, in December, and now repeatedly in January, over and over and over again. The difference this time around, they're holding massive bags. We're talking billions and billions of dollars worth of bags. Of course, the corporate insiders, they've already dumped their stock. They cashed in hundreds of millions of dollars, in some cases billions and billions of dollars. The insiders done. The scam already took place. The greatest transfer of wealth in human history is almost done now. They're gonna leave the retail crowd holding the bag. We're talking billions of dollars worth of bags just right now. The few weeks worth of selling produced billions and billions of dollars worth of bags, and these bags are about to be in the trillions. Look no further than the crypto market, aka the tulip market. Over the weekend alone, over $1 trillion was wiped away. Poof, gone. Now the retail crowd, even listening, of course not. Investors will have the resolve tested should declines become more frequent. In the week through Thursday, they shoved more than $1 billion into technology exchange trade funds. Data defined by Bloomberg show. In fact, every industry sector except consumer discretionary materials. So inflow in that 4-day stretch. Perhaps you want to buy materials here since we have inflation. You want to be in copper or metals, etc. But no, they're buying the same names over and over again. Tech, the EVs, the ARK Invest Mania, over and over and over again. The bags are getting bigger here, folks. The meme stocks, you want to talk about that? Meanwhile, lucky, the buyers added another $500 million to the Pro Share Ultra Pro QQQ fund, the ticker T triple Qs. This is the ultra leverage index for the Qs. Meaning, if the Qs pops higher in a single day by 1%, that T triple Qs will go higher 3 times the regular Qs, and vice versa. If the Nasdaq triple Qs goes down 1%, the T triple Qs will go down 3 times that loss. This is how you know that it's not institutions or the big guys buying the dip here. It is the retail crowd, because they're buying leverage indices. The riskiest way to buy the dip. It shows high confidence, it shows complacency, it shows arrogance. Avoid the big holding massive bags in the T triple Qs. JP Morgan's data showed that the week through Tuesday saw the strongest retail order imbalance quote unquote for equities on record, meaning the buy orders outnumbered sell orders. Investors added a total of $5.9 billion, with Tuesday's $1.7 billion flow being the highest single session inflow in history. Unbelievable. They're begging to be smart, folks. Look at this. The inflows in the T triple Qs, massive inflows. We're talking billions of dollars here in a matter of weeks. And by the way, this index, the T triple Qs, been around for a long time. You know how many times I use this, be it in options or buying the index straight up? I can count maybe 3 times in about a decade worth of trading. The retail crowd continues to buy these leverage indices. And by the way, they also continue to buy the S triple Qs, which is the 3 times inverse index of the Qs. All high risk plays here. The retail crowd has a high tolerance for risk. Be it the crypto market, be the options mania gambling, they're about to be taught a painful lesson. It's already happening. It's already underway. Now we look at the net retail flows turnover. The options delta, they remain positive, meaning they're buying more and they're betting for more upside. So a lot of you out there say, hey, there's a lot of fear in the market. When there's fear, you're the morons, these idiots. Or they love to misquote Warren Buffett. They don't use any of his teachings when it comes to investing and trading at all. But when the market goes down, they quote Warren Buffett. We agree with everybody's fearful. Really? Does this look like fear to you? Pouring billions and billions and billions of dollars every single week, buying the dip, getting slaughtered, catching a falling knife? That's not fear. Fear is about to come. Just wait for it. Because despite all of this buying, it didn't work, and the Nasdaq suffered its worst start of the year since 2008. I wonder what happened back then. I can't remember. All bad years, by the way. We saw such a bad start. 2008, 2016, and now we're set to have the worst start since January 2008. Look at this. In a regular year, the market goes back 10 to 15% every single year. That's normal. Not during last year though. We barely had 5% corrections, sustainable corrections in 2021. Let me help you out here so you can see this clearly. We have trends. Market bottoms, and we form higher lows. So the corrections become less severe over time. And then the trend breaks, and we have another correction. We start another phase, and then we make higher lows once again until that's broken, and we start another one. The latest break, however, that started back in December, is different than all of them. We're making lower lows. It doesn't look that this is just a correction. We're about to make higher lows, and the market's going to recover. We'll go back to all-time highs again. It looks that we tapped out here. It looks that we are forming the beginning of the bear market, absent of a massive rescue mission, which you cannot foresee that fundamental change in the macroeconomic outlook, meaning inflation. Without inflation going down, the bear market is inevitable. Netflix alone lost $45 billion in one day. Once again, Netflix, one of the largest components of the Nasdaq, widely held name in your typical household portfolio. It lost $45 billion in a single day. On Friday alone, we thought that was bad. $45 billion lost. This weekend, we lost over $1 trillion in the crypto market alone. It gets even better. In the options market, easily over $1 trillion expired worthless because it was option expiration. The majority of options that were due for expiration were calls, upside calls that became way out of the money due to the correction. And therefore, we did not talk about it on Thursday's video. It becomes irrelevant. All these trillions are lost now. Gone. Because they bought out of the money calls, believing the Santa rally, which turned out to be a sucker's rally, a bull trap. But we told you that in this channel from the get-go. What do you know? They get flushed down and trillions are lost. See, the Fed injected trillions and trillions of dollars over the course of almost 2 years into the stock market. All it took is just a matter of weeks. You haven't even finished January yet, and we already lost trillions of dollars out of all that fake wealth that the Fed created. Of course, the big sharks, the oligarchs, the Musks, the Bezos, the Zuckerbergs, they all cashed out. They turned the fake money into real money, and they're buying islands and massive real estate all over the place, launching themselves into space. And of course, they're amassing a massive pile of cash to buy the dip when it is viable and scoop up all these assets that you geniuses bought during the pandemic for pennies on the dollar. Meanwhile, you gotta be holding them back. And since we're talking technicals right now, here's another honest sign for the stock market. The VIX curve inverts in time-honored bull signal tied to peak panic. Now, be careful here because this is a double-edged sword. I've been telling you for a few days now. We are looking for a bottom in this market. We're looking for a tradable bottom, meaning the market's gonna blast higher by retail investors buying the dip. Combine that with options market activities. You combine that with short covering. We're gonna have a massive pop higher, and that pop is gonna be another bull trap absent of a fundamental change in the Fed's policy. Here's the double-edged sword. As you can see, we'll look at these spreads between the VIX and the 3-month futures. Every time we pop into positive readings, it is a signal that perhaps the VIX is topping. And if the VIX stops, it means the market is bottoming. But be careful though. You gotta watch this spread carefully. If it is a peak, then we see the readings diving down to negative territory again. And that means the VIX stopped, and this was just a correction. And the market's gonna bottom and recover. Doesn't mean the market's gonna go all-time highs. So it means that we have a bottom that we can trade for now. However, if we continue to see positive readings consistently for a while between the VIX and the 3-month futures, then this means it's not just a correction.